The U.S. economy shrank for the second straight quarter from April to June of this year.
That's right. This consecutive economic decline aligns with a widely accepted rule of thumb for a recession. The Bureau of Economic Analysis reports the GDP fell 0.6% during the second quarter. Now, that's slightly less than what was calculated in the advance estimate released by the Bureau last month. But it still follows a 1.6% decline in the first quarter.
Meanwhile, the Kansas City Federal Reserve Economic Policy Symposium begins today. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is scheduled to deliver a speech tomorrow addressing the state of the U.S. economy. Joining us now is Jeanna Smialek. She is a Federal Reserve and economy reporter for the New York Times. Jeanna, thanks so much for joining us. To start off, the Bureau of Economic Analysis says the economy shrank in the second quarter, but not by as much as originally estimated. So is this good news, or does it indicate that we're in a period of recession?
Right. So this was the second revision to that number. We have one more coming. So I think this is good news on the margin and that it's not as bad as we thought it was. And I think the really important thing to keep an eye on here is that while the economy did shrink in the second quarter, that was heavily because the government was spending less money and because companies were building up their inventories. A lot of economists expect growth to really bounce back in the third quarter and into the end of the year. And so, I think we have to read these numbers with a little bit of nuance. While that 2-quarter decline is sort of a conventional rule of thumb definition of recession, I think it maybe isn't so appropriate here because we are in a very unusual economic period. And, that is why here in the United States, we don't define recessions in that sort of formulaic way because sometimes they require a little bit of judgment. And this seems like it's one of those moments.
So specifically, how might the latest GDP estimate impact Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's highly anticipated speech in Wyoming tomorrow? And explain to us what it is that investors are actually going to be listening for in his remarks.
Right. So this individual number is unlikely to very much sway what Chair Powell says here in Jackson Hole, where, as you can see, I am already standing. I think the really big question is what is going to happen next. And so I think they're probably parsing this data to get some sense of what the economy's overall trajectory is. The Fed is looking for a slowdown. They have been raising interest rates in order to try and cool off the economy in hopes that as demand pulls back a little bit, supply will be able to catch up. And inflation, which, as your listeners and viewers all know, has been very, very high, that inflation might begin to slow down. And so investors are going to be very closely watching his comments for any hint at how quickly the Fed intends to keep raising interest rates and any sort of sense of how much pain the Fed is willing to inflict on the economy as it tries to wrestle those price increases lower.
All right, a lot of focus there in beautiful Jackson Hole, Wyoming, where you are. Jeanna Smialek. Jeanna, thanks very much. We appreciate it.